don't know if I've got beer goggles on. Probably do, or my Kool-Aid juice is flowing hot and heavy, but it feels like Billy's giving us a little more juice, a little more swagger as of late. I feel like his answers got a little more oomph to it. Some people might call it coach peak, and it is, but it's not your typical Billy. Been following for the last 3 years now. It feels different. Got a few things to go over. Some quotes about Joey Slackman that'll fire you up. Some new rules they've implemented during this fall camp that I found interesting, and I love them. I think they're great. It's crazy to think, like, why is this? We'll talk about it. It's a lot of great things to go over. Also, too, just one of the, what's Edgar? Edgar's his name. Just thought of it. One of the guys that always asks blowing questions seemed to have a little more of a optimistic tone to his voice when asking the questions today. So we'll dive all into that. So Billy Napier, of course, addresses the media today, has a few things he wants to go over. Says camp is heating up as expected for this training camp. It's been intense. A lot of competitive depth on both sides of the ball. A lot of competitive competition. What we expected. Love to see it. First 3 days have gone over very, very well. Had some of our insider guy or cam guy write us a few messages saying, I think 2 days ago there was the viewing that he saw. Passing looked a little lackluster. Defensive line was kind of getting chewed out a little bit. But the following day said, hey, passing looked like they cleaned up those areas, and the defensive line seemed to have made the energy is constantly there. And again, maybe there's reason why it's bringing eyeballs to it, and the reason why even Cam is even thinking about it or seeing this, right, is because last year we didn't have that. So if we never probably knew we were having a bad day because the vocality wasn't there like we were getting it from Chapman. I don't know. That's just my thought on it, my thinking of it from when we're getting this information and hearing about this camp. Again, these guys only get a few minutes in there, so they're trying to get as much as they possibly can in that little short time. You can't tell a full story, but you get a little taste of the pie. When you get the days added up together, then you get somewhat of a feel and a story of what's going on. Billy talked about DJ Lagway as well, too, which excited me, about him growing into the role, feeling more comfortable with what's going on around him, more confident in the system, a lot of progress, which we would expect him to do. Again, I don't think he's going to come in and take this job by any stretch of imagination, but love hearing him just grow. And something we didn't have last year, which was a legitimate starting backup quarterback with Max Brown. Love Max, thought he was fantastic, but we got to admit, I don't think he's carrying the same juice that DJ is going to bring to the table. So another one that got brought up, and this is interesting because I've said it on the show before. The comments roasted me for it, yelled at me about it. And I've kind of been hammering this home of like, I'm a betting man. Here's my starting three for wide receiver. And now the noise is getting a little bit louder. People keep thinking Badger's going to come right in and do the damn thing, which I'm cool with. Badger's coming in as a junior, sophomore. Obviously, he played with kind of erratic quarterback play his first 2 years at Arizona State. Khalil Jackson, people aren't really, I guess, too fond of him, but when the ball was thrown his way last year, he caught the damn ball. I don't know what you want from me. The guy, in my opinion, is going to be the starting guy come week one, excluding injury, obviously. And that seems to be kind of ramping up. He said, look, he spoke about Eugene, Khalil, and Shamir DK in the sense that they're going to be starters, but he's like, it's a competitive room, and he mentioned those three names. That tells me those are your three that you got to look at right now, and the rest of it's kind of open for anybody's taking, whether it's Aiden Mizell, Badger. He goes, look, Badger is incredible, extremely talented, learning the systems. That even spoke to him the other day. He goes, look, coach, this sounds like I'm used to, but this humidity, it's getting to me. This is the fastest, most intense practice I've ever been a part of. Now, coming from the Pac-12 in Arizona State, we're holding a lightweight there. I don't know how much we can really hold our hats on that. We should be faster and more intense, so I'm down with it. I think Kamari Wilson went there to Arizona State, so he should be having a time of his life if that is the case, if that is the transition. So, look, I'm not saying that this is going to be the starting three, but if it came out today and I was using our betting partners to put money down, I would put that would be your starting three. Don't yell at me. Just letting you know my thoughts and feelings on that. Look, said he's practicing a lot faster. Things are getting better. But again, he just got there after the spring game, so he hasn't been full stride. The pro is this wide receiver room is extremely competitive anyway, which way you look, which has been the narrative for the first 3 days of practice and will continue to be the narrative going into the next few days of practice. Next, we got Joey Slackman. Joey Slackman's turned a lot of heads in practice. Obviously, a new addition from Penn to that defensive line. And we've seen him. We've heard about him. A football guy is kind of the consensus. Jason Marshall said he's a smelling salts kind of guy. The most football guy we have on the team. I mean, if that doesn't just describe what he is to a T. Remember from Swamp Kings, the scene, I think it was the Pouncey Brothers, just hitting some smelling salts. Let's go hit somebody. Spit on me. That's what I get when, you know what I mean? When I think of Joey Slackman, the clip from the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive line, hit me in my mouth. He starts bleeding. Got blood coming out of my mouth, baby. That's the Joey Slackman that I think. And when we lacked the energy, you heard Stephen Harris come on and say, like, we had zero energy. There just wasn't any excitement. I don't think we're going to have an issue with that at all with the likes of Slackman, Banks, and Cam Jackson. Those guys just carry energy like nobody. And Sapp, you remember the video, the teardrop coming out of his eye. No Sean Marino, teardrop light coming out of his eye. Come on, baby. There's going to be so much passion and just energy on that defensive line. That's exactly what you need going into the SEC and this crazy-ass schedule. So, thought that was cool to get from Joey Slackman. He also told a fun story about Joey Slackman, about him taking a cannonball into a cold plunge. I guess after every camp, Billy hops in the old cold plunge. Joey Slackman cannonballed into it. Now, he had some rule changes, he said. This is new. Obviously, they're living in the dorms, kind of that old style, not the hotel. He also has taken away their phones during recovery. And what was the other part that he took away from? I think it's recovery and something else. Recovery and training process, I think. He took their phones away to create more of a bond with the team. You're forced to sit there and talk with one another, right? Have conversations when you don't have your phone to look down to. Probably focus on that recovery a little bit more. You get to focus on what the task is at hand. But again, ultimately, I think it's to build the team chemistry amongst one another. I went on a sailboat with an old buddy of mine one time, an older gentleman, brought a couple of his older gentlemen on the boat with us. And I'm a big music guy. I love playing music in those kind of environments. Didn't play a lick of radio. And at first, it's like, what are we doing here? What's up? And obviously, we're in the boat. Numbers were on the phones. I ended up having the most incredible conversations of my entire life while being on that sailboat. He told me afterwards, like, look, I learned when I was growing up and I had my 2 kids, we would go on road trips and I wouldn't play music. And they would hate it. My kids like, Dad, put the music on. This was back in, his kids were a little older, so they didn't have cell phones. He wouldn't put it on. And it was because it forced conversation. And he would say that we would have the greatest conversations with my kids. And so this, to me, kind of when I heard him saying that, reminded me of that, of like, look, there's power when you take these things away that we in our life have used to distract us. And I think, look, small things like that go a long way into the season. And speaking of small things and just attention to detail, we heard about how somebody else commented like how clean the locker room is. Got brought up again. Apparently, I guess they were living in a dump before. But what it sounds like is basically these kids go in there, they hang out in the locker room, go crazy, and leave, and it looks like nobody ever even went in there. And when before, I imagine they go in, they leave towels on the ground, they don't care. People got to kind of go and straighten it up. And you have a sense of entitlement when that happens, that someone's going to clean up after me. Someone's going to pick up after me. That is not the case anymore. They go in and they leave, and it looks like nobody even touched the damn thing. And be like, look, I think it's important to having that entitlement and not having that entitlement and building that. And then he spoke to this, which I've mentioned before. I mentioned it earlier this year when the switch from Mark Hockey was happening. I go, look, this is going to be a big play because whoever you hand the ball off to in this offseason is basically your second-hand man, your right-hand man, right? And I go, if you fire Mark Hockey and you move on, it's like cutting off your right leg because you trust this guy with your life, with your team for half the year. And he credited to these guys in the way that they're functioning, the way they're acting, the way they're holding guys accountable, to the way that he goes, I don't credit Tyler. That's on Tyler for managing this and holding these guys accountable, during this offseason. And again, that just speaks, we hear about the results on the muscles and their strength and conditioning, but Tyler brings a different atmosphere to it that just raises the bar at another level. Love hockey, always been a big fan. I think he might have been a little bit too close to the team, had too much friendship where he wasn't maybe to hold him accountable. Tyler seems like a no BS kind of guy. I'm not playing games. With tats like that and arms and traps like that, say something if you want to say something. It helps with that, and I think that it's able to allow him to establish that accountability and keep the ball rolling. So kind of cool to hear about the locker room and just the way this team is carrying themselves. Again, we don't get much, but these are small things of how you're holding yourselves accountable when nobody is watching. It speaks volumes about who you are as a person and as a man, and hopefully that translates, and I think it will translate onto the football field. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is, again, Edgar asked this question about Caleb Banks. Says Caleb Banks looks incredible, looks stronger, looks more in tune with what he's doing. Doesn't have much body fat on him. Edgar, when asking this question, was like, Billy, what Am I in for a treat this year? And Edgar, like I said, that guy is known for throwing haymakers at Billy. Him and the old I get Mark Long. Those guys be just slinging. Look, I love it because they ask the tough questions that we all want to hear. But this was a T-ball question for Billy. Looks good. What do we think about Caleb Banks? And he goes, yeah, Caleb Banks is doing great. Second year in the system, knows what he's doing, feels confident. Again, we speak about Sapp, Kelby Collins, LJ, obviously Slackman, Cam Jackson, Big Dez. We're always talking about Big Dez. But Caleb Banks, when we lost Chris McClellan to Arkansas this year, everyone was kind of freaking out. But I kind of brought up it early on. I go, look, I think Banks made a move to where Chris wasn't going to be the guy, and Chris kind of was the guy last year. And I think Banks made a huge push to where it's like this isn't guaranteed yours. Banks is coming, and so are two other guys. And I think that was the reason for the move. And now we're kind of seeing it come tenfold a few months later. So I loved the more so getting the optimistic voice from Edgar than we usually do. It kind of tells you a lot. These guys are around Billy more than myself and more than anybody else, probably more than his wife is. And so they're as judgmental as they can get. They know what's going on out there. So good stuff. I love the Saturday presser. They got the day off today. They'll be back at it again tomorrow. And then, of course, on Monday, we've got Champs Corner. We've got so much film to go over. There's so many clips and things that I want to just kind of pick Stephen Harris's brain about. We have obviously had him on last year, so he's seen the transition. He's watched from last year to this year. He's a huge fan of Gerald Chapman, a huge fan of these boys. He's met these guys, these young men in Slackman. He's seen them eye to eye, right? Shook their hands. He's got an inside pulse of what's going on. So to get to his thoughts and opinions about it, it's going to be a blast. Hope you guys enjoyed today's content. If you did, you know what to do. Smash the like button, subscribe, share it with someone you love. Share it with somebody you love. Make sure you love somebody too tonight. Hold them tight. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace and love, baby.